Hello, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Murphy. It's okay. Are you okay? Okay, we've got a guest for this video. Murphy's gonna sit behind me, I think, because he's very scared of the thunder and it is really stormy here, so if you can hear that, I apologize. Again, there's nothing I can do about the weather, but I'm sorry if it's really loud. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Mary, and today's video is going to be my 5-star predictions wrap up for 2021. So at the beginning of 2021, back in like February, I think, I made a video about 5 books that I thought I would give 5 stars. Go ahead. I made a video about 5 books that I thought I would give 5 stars, and I wanted to read all 5 of them. They were all either new releases in 2021, or they were released in 2020, but I never got the chance to read them. I'm gonna talk about these books in the order in which I enjoyed them, so my least favorites will be first, and my favorites will be last. Spoiler alert, not all of these books got 5 stars for me, but without further ado, I am just gonna go ahead and jump into the lowest rated book on this totem pole. Also, our stockings are behind me, so I apologize for that. A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. This is the first book in the Scholomance series by this author. This is the second book that I've read by this author, and I ended up giving this book 3 stars. I really disliked the beginning of this book. This is about a school. It's a magic school setting, and essentially there are no teachers at the school. The school is to protect these young wizards who have magic in their blood, because in this world, there's these creatures called Maleficaria, I think, who try to attack young wizards. Adolescence is like when you start to get your powers, and so once you start to get your powers, these things will try to attack you. And in this world, there are these things called enclaves, which are like protected groups of wizards that get together and they form this protected alliance so that Maleficaria don't bother them. But it's too dangerous to have your youths at home untrained. So they made this magic school where they send you and you learn to hone your powers, but this school is also infected with Maleficaria who are able to get in. And to survive, the big thing in this school is graduation, which is when you go to the bottom where all the Maleficaria are at that time and you fight them to try to get out of the school. Only about half of your class is able to get out every year, and then other people die along the way. So there's a lot of death and carnage in this book. And we follow our main character, Galadriel, who goes by Elle, who's not from an enclave. So there are wizards who are not in enclaves, and they have the lowest chance of survival. But the way that you are able to survive graduation is by making alliances and forming teams so that you all have each other's backs. That's the gist of this plot line. I had a lot of issues with the way this book and the world was sort of delved out and handled. I didn't like the main character, which was a bummer. I don't always have to like a main character. Like, I don't think main characters need to be likable, but this main character, we're inside her head, and she just would repeat things about how, like, people don't like her. She was very rude to people all the time. So it was like, she didn't understand why people didn't like her, but also it's obvious because you're rude to them. I don't know. But then we also follow this other character, Orion, who is a boy from an enclave in New York, and he and Elle sort of become unlikely friends, which is something that I really like. But it's like he chose to be Elle's friend, but she was kind of mean to him still. So I didn't really love that aspect of their relationship. But overall, this book just kind of let me down in a lot of ways. I love a magic school setting, but I could not buy into the fact that these kids don't have any teachers. So it's like the school is handing out assignments, but that was never really explained how that was happening. Towards the end, they explain how they would like turn assignments in, but it just wasn't fully explained. And I don't think that this school setting was fully fleshed out enough for me to really enjoy it. That said, I do plan on reading the sequel because something happens at the very end of this book that has piqued my interest, I guess, to read the second book in the series, which I believe came out this year. So I will try to read that at some point in 2022, but I don't know if I'm going to get to it because I have a lot of series that I need to catch up on. I'm going to have a series catch-up video at the beginning of next year to just talk about all the series that I finished in 2021, started in 2021, and continued in 2021 that I still need to finish, etc. So that's this one. I wasn't a huge fan, but also I liked it more in the end than I thought I would like it at the beginning. And it had enough of a like intriguing plot that I wanted to keep reading it. So the second book that I am gonna like rank as my second least favorite, my fourth most favorite, I don't know, is The Ones We're Meant to Find by Joan He, which is a YA sci-fi kind of. So it's set in this futuristic world where people, like, Earth has become basically uninhabitable to the surface. So they've built these cities up in the sky above Earth that are better to live in. The environment is better and stuff. And how you get higher up where you're safer is based on your family's history of being, like, ecologically good and good for the environment. So, like, if your great-grandfather owned a bunch of oil fields and, like, or mined for coal or something like that, you don't really have a chance of getting up there because you're going to be just on a lower rung of society. But this book follows the perspective of two different sisters. One sister is trapped on an island and she doesn't know how she got there, and she's trying to figure out how to get back to her sister. And the other sister is this, like, computer genius person who is not allowed to work with the, like, tech anymore because something has happened and we don't really know what it is, but we have, like, a rough idea, but her sister has just gone missing. So we know that these are the two sisters, and one of them is on this island and the other one is back in their homeland, or like back where they're supposed to be. But there's all kinds of really interesting things going on with timelines in this book that you don't really realize while you're reading it until afterwards. I should say I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars. I don't think this is the book that I thought it was going to be honest with you. I think I thought it was going to be something else. And I think a lot of people felt that way because I feel like it was pitched as something very different than what it ended up being. I don't really want to explain more because I feel like finding out what it actually is about is part of the, like, draw of the book. But overall, I just didn't feel overly attached to the characters. I did love the sibling relationship, and I did really enjoy certain parts of this book, but overall it was a very, like, meh, middle of the road book for me. So that's why I gave it 3.5 stars and not 4 stars. I rounded down on Goodreads because I don't feel like it's a book that I'm going to be, like, talking about very much in the future. The next book on this list is one that I just finished, and that is We Can Only Save Ourselves by Alison Wisdom. I gave this book 4 stars. It's realistically like 4.5, but I rounded down to 4. Again, because I don't think I could say that I loved this book, but I did really, really enjoy this premise. This follows a couple of different perspectives. So we have the perspective of this teenage girl, Alice, who runs away from home and joins this commune, and it's very Manson family-like in the way that it's a 30-something-year-old man who is kind of a hippie, and he lives with all of these young girls. Some of them are, like, college-aged, and then others of them are down to, like, Alice. Alice is, I think, like, 16 at the time, and he's having relationships with all of them, or relations, I guess, with all of them. So it's about her joining this cult, but we also follow the perspective of the people she left behind in her neighborhood. So I don't know exactly how to explain it. It's like a third, or like a plural of all of the mothers that are in her, like, suburban neighborhood where she's from, and them reacting to her going away, and also just talking about their lives. So it's like they're talking to the reader about what happened to Alice, but it's also like they're talking to Alice about what she's done to their community, which is just a really interesting way to do it. So a lot of the negative reviews that I've seen of this book, I do read reviews after I read a book to sort of figure out how I feel about things, but a lot of the negative reviews that I saw on this book talked about how they disliked the way that it ended, and they felt like it was very anticlimactic, but I think that was on purpose. And this book, I believe, was supposed to raise the question of, like, why is the cult of suburbia, air quotes, are needed? Why is, like, that an accepted way to live your life, but the way that this other group was living is not accepted? And obviously the other group starts doing really bad things, but because, again, Manson family-esque, I think it was very much inspired by that. I've read a lot of books that deal with that kind of a cult-like setting, but what I liked about this one is we got a lot of the backstories of the girls who he went after, essentially, which I thought was really interesting. And we also learned a lot about the, like, sort of psychology of him and why he approached the girls that he did, and then how he kept them with him by telling them only small parts of his story, which I thought was really well done. So the reason that I gave this 4.5 stars is I don't know how Alison Wisdom could have done a better job with what she was trying to do. I just don't think it was my favorite thing. in my favorite style of cult book, if you will. And now we're moving to the 2 books that I actually did give 5 stars. So first, The Heart Principle by Helen Hoang. A lot of people didn't like this book. I absolutely loved this book. I think my order of preference for these books are The Bride Test, The Heart Principle, and then The Kiss Quotient. It was my least favorite of the 3, but I gave all of them 5 stars. This is the 3rd in a series of standalone romances. They all follow one main character who is on the autism spectrum, but they also all follow like a group of 3 boys who are 3 men who are related to each other. So Michael in the first book is the cousin, I think, of the character in the second book, or maybe the brother. And then the main character in this book is Quan. And Quan, I believe, is either their cousin or the brother of one of them. I can never remember. But this book follows Anna, who is a professional violinist, and she's having a really hard time perfecting her piece, and she gets stuck at this one part of it every single time she plays it, so she's sort of taking a break from being a professional violinist. She's in a long-term relationship with this man, Julian, who decides that he wants to open their relationship before he commits to her fully, and he does this very much in a way that, like, he's going to date other people, but he doesn't think she'll date other people. And so kind of to get back at him, she creates a dating profile and decides she wants to have a one-night stand, which is where Quan comes in. Quan was a lot of people's favorite side characters from the first 2 books, myself included. And I think a lot of people wanted this to be way steamier than it was. But I feel like this one was less about, I mean, it was about their relationship, but it was less about, like, the steam and the first love of the relationship because of the complicated nature and the complicated, like, environment the relationship grew from, if you will. And it was more about Anna getting diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder and, like, coming to grips with that. And also a lot about Anna's family because her dad suffers a stroke partway through this book and she feels a responsibility to care for him. So we get a lot of her interactions with her family and how she's very much a different person around them than she is around Quan, and she feels like she can't be herself because she's masking all the time. And I thought the way that the autism rep was handled in here was so good. And I also loved that she gets diagnosed in this book, so you really get to see the beginning of her journey, whereas in a lot of the other books, you're meeting someone when they've already known, and they've already got their coping mechanisms down, and they've already got their masking techniques down. So I thought that was really well done in here too. So I loved this book. I understand why people didn't like it, or why it wasn't what people wanted from the series, but I think it was just, like, perfect for me. And then my favorite of the books that I read for this challenge, if you've seen my other video, then you know what I'm gonna say, The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. This book is so good. So I highly recommend this. It's like literary fiction, kind of, with, like, a fantastical / sci-fi twist. In this book, we follow Nora, who is really dissatisfied with her life and the way her life has gone. And so she tries to commit suicide, and when she does, she wakes up in a place between life and death called the Midnight Library. And in this library, she finds out that all of the lives she could have lived if she'd made different choices are in the stacks. And so she gets to leaf through a couple of different lives and go into them and live them as if she had made different choices to really decide whether her life is what she wanted or not. Which I just think is a really cool concept, because so she gets to live a bunch of different versions of her life and come back. This book made me sob. I really loved it. So yes, I absolutely loved this, and this is my favorite of my 5-star predictions. So overall, 2 out of the 5 were 5 stars. 1 was a 4.5 star, 1 was a 3.5 star, and 1 was a 3 star, which I haven't done the math yet, so let me do that really quick. Which is an average of 4.2 stars. Which is not bad, you know? It's not 5 stars. But on average, given my rating system, I liked all of these books, which is pretty good. So I am planning on doing a 5-star predictions for 2022. I haven't decided what's going to be on it yet. I need to scour some, like, books that are going to come out. I think I want to just have it be 2022 releases, because one of my goals is to read more books from 2022 or from the year that I'm in. So that being said, that's going to be it for today's video. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these and how you felt about them, but also let me know any books that you gave 5 stars, or any books that you thought you would give 5 stars and how that ended up going for you, like if you have a 5-star predictions list as well. But that's going to be it for today's video. Make sure to like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you would like to see more videos from me. I do post 2 videos every single week, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!